Welcome to Carl DeGregorio's Desk Session 31. We're in the next decade or next 10 piece. Decades, I think, only refers to years. So, again, that's as far as I can get with numerology and significance. 31. 31 is a significant one for many of us. It's when you leave your 30s, which laughably seemed like a fucking border over into elderliness, but yeah, sure it is. Don't trust anyone over 30, right? Wasn't that the hippie kind of mantra? Anyway, Death Session 31, feeling pretty good in general, even with again another sort of flaring day, and externals being part of the problem, and influence of externals, and receiving the message of mayhem from the societies that we live in is part of the problem. There is a head in the sand versus too much information. That's always the debate with me. Like, am I too about it, or am I underinformed? And I have to remember that it's not my job, right? So then the preponderance of information, the things I care about, the things I have to know, if I have a brother's a doctor. When he was in medical school, would it have been important for him to know how the Dow was going? It would, if he was in the market to then have to pay his bills, obviously. And I don't know enough about his past, or any doctor, right? The things you have to know are vascularity, all the systems of the body, the metrics of vital signs, or an EMT. Let's take the doctors out of it. An EMT knows high blood pressure, weak pulse, slow heart rate. Those can be the things that's seen in every goddamn ER or every triage scenario. It's like, we have 6'2" white male, 40s heart rate, and I don't know what the numbers are after that. I need the script, but like that information, while they're studying, at least, is all they really need to take on board. It's harder for people to know what is information that is helpful and what isn't. And then I've been saying for a long time that if somebody else's like gig in the media fucks you up, other than reporting who, what, and where, if somebody else's gig in the media is going to fuck with your mood or be a trigger, you're either too sensitive, too involved, or forgot that someone with a pretty cushy job just fucked your day up, and we don't know why we let that happen. And I'm trying not to let it happen, although yesterday was a big day, and these things become historical. Black Friday, Black Monday, whatever the fuck it was. These things can happen, and they get you off your keel. And if anything, that's been what I've been trying to maintain through my journey so far in life. I was not always successful. So far with the Death Session, I've been more successful keeping a even keel, because this is the practice of the Death Session, is to check in week by week to see if I can put my money where my mouth is, put my feelings out, and regulate from week to week how successful, and not in a self-dogmatic way to hurt myself. I've heard that CEO types like to give themselves a grade every day. I mean, I think that can border on self-abuse. And overall, I give myself an A in life, which is probably just growth to say so. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's kind of the purpose of this. But it was a rocky day, and what happens there is then you say, man, all the fucking lip service to fucking stoicism or all the other stuff the cable going out can be enough to fuck you up, or obviously, a downturn in the market can fuck you up. And I'm not belittling anybody whose life was fucking rocked because of the market, or belittling anybody who, there is, I guess it's what you call sort of splitting levels or collapsing levels. I've heard that phrase. My acting coaches talked about that. The day Pompeii, the day the volcano erupted and you were frozen forever as a frozen, scorched person from the lava of the act of God volcano. Right before that happened, what makes that such a crazy thing is that, could you understand theoretically that someone was having an existential crisis that day? And how fucking important would that have been if that was ultimately the day they left the earth through an act of God? But you can't walk around all the time in that only on this level of, or you can, I don't know. I know what ultimately then would make you kind of an absurd notion. This is when you have to guard, I guess, against irony and guard against sarcasm. But, when someone's teeing off on you in a customer service realm, right away the most important thing to do is to just sort of take it and maybe try to move on. But if you actually said to them, you're flipping out about, 30 cents off toilet paper, maybe there's more important stuff. Now, then you're going to be judgy. That's a terrible way to do it, but you have to sort of regulate yourself and try to figure out what's important and what to let in and what to, and I guess there's a lot of theories. You keep yourself so busy that you don't have time for that. Obviously, losing the ability, here comes the ankle reference, losing the ability to go for my walks. Although nowadays you can absorb media 24 hours, or you can absorb media 16 hours. And many days I do. I bet. If you consider media, music, movies, TV, social media, all of that, if you consider that all one thing, yeah, you could be digesting it all the time, and that's got to have an impact. And so I have to be more vigilant. I started doing paper crosswords again in pen and ink to shut down the notion of screen time. And it's funny when you keep the phone on the other side of the room and people try to call you that are usually always, you're instantly accessible. They actually can freak out over the fact that what are you doing? I'm doing a crossword puzzle, and I don't want to say that because that just sounds like I'm twiddling my thumbs, but I'm doing a crossword puzzle. I had the phone on the other room, and I keep my phone on vibrate, so I had no knowledge of your call, and it was hours ago. And that's the old-fashioned notion of not always being connected. And I don't know. You have to regulate your partner's expectation of contact during the day, and et cetera, et cetera. But, so this brings me to the point. Now not the point. I don't have a fucking point, but I'm also not going to beat myself up for coming to the point. But I talk about Springsteen a lot. That's my sort of creative Templar. And he has made an announcement that he's releasing out of his vault 7 new albums that weren't released in the years past, that he could have doubled the output by maybe releasing 2 albums each time. And I think it goes back to the 90s. So it's this chunk of time, 90s through the early 2000s, I think. But 7 albums, some of them that were mixed and then unreleased. Now, I am facing a good thing, which is I'm able to sort of walk on my foot now, and it's still a little tender, and I probably can't, like, quote unquote, get back to work the way I did just yet, but I'm on the other side of it where it gives me two things. It gives me hope that I'll get back to what was normal before. I will have survived a little blip on my radar of I weathered the storm financially, emotionally, and now physically it's getting better. And I want to stay on that track. But then the idea of what did you do while you were healing, and isn't healing from illness, injury, isn't that in and of itself if you were an athlete, that would be all you'd be consumed with, is to do it faster and to do it to make yourself stronger. And you would be probably not as belabored as I am because you're a fucking athlete and you're needed on the field. But I have a gig that they need me back. And so you hustle back, and then there's physiology, there's previous fitness, there's age. All those things go into how fast you're going to recover. But the notion of what did you do with this quote, what everybody thought of as free time. And I agree that, this is the levels thing. You can worry about the Mount Vesuvius erupting and live sort of in that existential fog that everything is absurd in this culture, that the fact that I was concerned with footwear, when I only can wear one shoe currently, but now I'm wearing two again, but I can't, so that you can just get yourself all pissed off about small things or just bliss out on the macro. And it's all about the lens, right? So the lens being, what'd you do while you were healing? I was healing. I pat myself on the back a little bit during shutdown of the COVID situation. I got a real estate license. Like, I passed the test. I did all of that. I did all the stuff, and I wasn't able because of the paperwork of the fingerprints, but all I had to do was wait for the test and then passed it. And so, yeah, that one was like, yeah, you did something with that chunk of free time. But now that I hurt myself, what did I do? And I've been doing this vlog and working on my one-man show, but I had the time to at least wheel myself out. Not literally, but I did. It's been written, so I could perform it. And now I'm at the point of, there's an end to this healing and getting back to it, and what was learned. And okay, so I still have time to get a reading off the ground before I go back, quote unquote, to the way it was. And then you hear that Springsteen had 7 albums on top of I would imagine there was an equivalent amount that were released from the 90s. We're talking like Lucky Town, Human Touch, through the Tom Joad stuff, all the way through the Rising and after. So yeah, maybe he had double the output. But some of us live tougher lives than as profound and prolific as Bruce is. Like, he still does have to, make a fucking sandwich and have a life and all that stuff. And I don't know the dude. So what I'm saying is, if you start to compare outputs, you're going to be in trouble. And yes, maybe all of us could be more prolific, but all of us also aren't. We have avocations and vocations, and he's only had the vocation. And it should be inspiring and it should be interesting. And I remember that first album of tracks that he released, which was unreleased stuff, and that had monster songs on it. That had Rendezvous, Thundercrack, Mary Lou, early versions of Born in the USA. Like, it wasn't just filler, and like, it wasn't obvious stuff. Oh, Be True is on that one. Songs that are arguably should have been on albums that were that good. And I know my other big Templar is Prince has unreleased stuff. These guys were prolific, and yes, they are operating on a level. That one-man show that's I don't know how many words, but it's 33 pages of straight dialogue. Like, it's not, I can definitely turn up the heat. We all could, but you're also gonna live. And the idea that I think someone told me a long time ago that Tolstoy had 12 kids and shit and still wrote these things. So this was the way to motivate people who swore that they couldn't write during a full life. when there's some guys who had as much on their plate as you do and still cranked it out. And so finding that zone and getting habits, that's the thing that I'm talking about. And will going back to work be, will it be the bummer that it could be, or could it be a sign of recovery and getting back to quote unquote life? And, me being a little more purposeful about how long I want to do it, how much further I could go, hoping and dreaming and not planning. You got to plan. And so also part of being hurt physically for your day job is one thing, but for my acting, like, I've had auditions where I'm not glad I didn't get them, but if they needed me on set and I had a boot, that may have been borderline unethical. I mean, not to divulge, but I think they would have made the accommodation as long as I could stand and walk. But you know what I'm saying. I didn't tell my agent about my injury because it hasn't come up. It's been that slow. But, there's next week is one of these outside shoot dates. And, I'd have to be a little bit of a modified person, and do I share that? And so the point being, you don't want your body to work for your fucking day gig. You want your body to work for all things, your life. And so, yes, the volcano can come down and wipe you out. And is it profound? It's profound to see. Some people were washing dishes when they were fucking melted by lava. And they didn't get to pick a grand exit. Some people were running, right? Because they saw it coming. And that's a morbid thing to think about. But in these grand gestures of living your best life and following these gurus of productivity, you have to fucking live. You gotta, I don't want to get crass, but you gotta eat, sleep, the shit shower and shave. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to turn myself into a more neurotic than I've been trying to untangle neuroses. I'm not going to do that to myself. And, but I'm also at an age where, like, how much wire, do you have left to unspool? And, Springsteen is a kind of a tough one because he's one of the rare people who gets to still put out new shit, and he's got a fan base that wants to hear it and a record label that'll put it out. And yes, maybe they're not as passionate as, I don't know, but The Rising is in my, top 4 albums, and those are late blooming fucking artists where most of the time, and maybe commerce has more to do with that, and pantheonic, and but he did the Broadway show in his 60s, 70s. So that has to be, that's why you pick your heroes, and many things aside, I don't like all the warbly fucking acoustic stuff, obviously, as much, or not obviously, but for me, that all the real fanatics say Nebraska's their favorite album. I'm like, eesh, that one was cool, but it wasn't The River, and it wasn't Born to Run or Darkness. I have Darkness as my first and favorite. But Bruce Springsteen, minutia aside, if I go back to work sooner than I anticipate, I think it's going to be a little later because I'm not able to really stride on my foot, and really plant and do everything. There's that quote of a man cannot step in the same river twice because it's not the same river and it's not the same man. That is true to me about how I'm going to have to face going back to something that could feel like, Office Space. Here I go, Dilbert, like, ooh, back to the grind again. And there will be some of that, the lack of freedom, the have to punch the clock. I want to free myself of that in general. But can I go back with the idea of, okay, I can get my finances right? It's evidence of self-sufficiency. Those prideful things, they held my spot while I was down and out. Things like that. So it won't be the same river, right? And I'm not the same man, and I have to remember that. And we're not done yet. So I anticipate at least a month or two still, and we'll see. But creatively, I have tinkered with the show, and because of the time I've had to probably be online too much, but mostly on reaction channels, listening to music, just and watching a lot of drama. How you start is really important. I talked about that a couple sessions ago, and I tinkered more than one time, and then you, in that quest for a great subject line, essentially your opening line of a song, your opening line of a novel, your opening words out of an actor's mouth in a play or in a movie, or the first shot probably in the movie. That's why they always do the shot of the aerial shot of the city, and then they zoom in, and then the credits. That's the trope. But they're trying to set a visual tone, because movies are a visual medium. But a one-man show, song, all those things, what's the first line going to be? And, I don't know that I can be clever enough to go lights out black and be, they say another thing, like something just dime piece off the dome. Maybe that's not what I do, because the theatrical opening is different than word only. There is some visual in there, but there is also the setting the conceit, what's going to be, it's lights out. Is there some action? I'm, part of the profundity of it, if I can do it right, is just walking. That's a Peter Brook, was an English theater director. I think he did Marat Sade, but Peter Brook's book, The Empty Space, right? So that just the profundity of lights out, actor crosses to center. There's a story there already. And so rather than trying to beat the living Christ out of myself to find the perfect subject line, I spoke previously about reaching out to a casting director, and I was like, if I can get, everybody's like, and everybody tells you in these business blogs, like if you're going to cold email somebody, because cold calling I think is considered harassment these days, but if you're going to cold email somebody, that subject line's everything. And that's true to a degree. But it also can't be like a big zinger, and it can't be like, check out my package. You know what I'm saying? So obviously you can grab attention, but you got to be appropriate. You also have to grab attention that might actually be, going to get the email opened. But you already have the people in the crowd, which is why you're marketing to get people in the seats. Once they're there, that you have them, so you have a responsibility to thanks for coming in and without saying it, but you have to kind of reward them with something good off the top, a great opening song, Little Red Corvette. I guess I should have known by the way she parked her car sideways that it wouldn't last. Ooh, yeah. How's that for an opening song line, right? That's Prince, Little Red Corvette, I compare it also to a Springsteen song, Promised Land. On a rattlesnake speedway in the Utah desert, I pick up my money and head back into town. Like, those are good fucking lyrics, and they roll off. They're and that's an opening line. A lot of people say, excuse me while I kiss the sky is a good opening line, and it's not even the opening line, but I'm talking about the opening sentence, the thing. And a subject line is a little different. And I guess you just have to, I'm boiling this thing down, my one-man show, like a bouillon cube. Just getting it about what I want to say, how I want it to feel. And so addressing the subject line is different. I spoke before, I don't know if I've said this out on the vlog, but when you do film and television, they write on the clapper, take 1, take 2, right? And Stanley Kubrick, it's take 425, and it's you literally fucking turning a doorknob, and it's, and you want to kill yourself, right? or you're into it because I fancy myself. I've never had a multiple take situation where it got that crazy, but I fancy myself the kind of guy who would probably love multiple takes because there's more time on set, right? But it's called a take. Now there's probably reasons for that, but so that means it's a give from, and then this isn't profound, but it's a give from the performer, from the artist. It's a give. Take 1, take 2, and then it's the takes that the editor has to splice together, and it has to be a give. You have to give options. You have to give over to the character. You have to give over to the story. You have to deliver your part of the deal in this filmmaking process to give a take. You have to give. And obviously the way Hollywood behaves is a turnoff, and rightfully so, and you don't see a lot of generosity of spirit. You see a lot of spirit of narcissism. I get that. We've all been guilty of it. But now that I'm understanding that it's a give, you have the give, they have they got to take. So it's an act of generosity. I know that sounds crazy, but if you hear an Adele song, you telling me she wasn't being generous with her voice, with her story, to open up like that, to share her gift? Come on, it's a give, and we get the take. So in a sense, that subject line is the give, and hopefully the take is they open the email, and there's an ask in it, right? So my opening salvo for, I've tried writing cover letters where I was trying to be dope in the front one, but all I had was the truth was I saw your name in the credits was what I wrote for the subject line, because I was watching TV. I saw my casting director that I'd been in for a bunch. I saw her go across the screen casting by, and I said, saw your name in the credits. Not I want a job. I said I saw your name in the credits. And then the opening sentence was, I saw your name in the credits while I was watching, and I named the movie. And I was basically complimentary, like, way to go. Since I last saw you, it's been many years, because I don't come in a lot. So all those years when we knew each other, you've been working. So congratulations on all that. Way to go. You're at the top of the heap now. And then the ask, not the ask, but this is what I've been doing. And I listed it off. Short films, staying in class. It wasn't a ton of shit, but it showed some progress, and I got an audition for it. So I guess instead of making my one-man show about me getting to somewhere with it, it's what is the fuck I'm trying to give? What am I trying to give? A message, a feeling. You know, some songs like Pour Some Sugar on Me, the fucking lyrics don't make any fucking sense. But there's a feeling, a vibe. They're giving you a feeling and a vibe, and they know it, and you don't have to know it. You know, White Rabbit. That thing's the creepiest fucking horror movie sounding song I ever fucking heard, right? And it's a kind of about a fucking LSD trip, and there's some weird diary book that came out in the fucking 60s, an anonymous book, some creepy shit, but you get a vibe off of that, you know. And that's the same band that does like Nothing's Gonna Stop Us and We Built This City. Like, that's crazy range, and also, you know, not my favorite shit, but like they give a feeling. And then there's, you know, hip hop gives you words, you know, and that's something, you know, I don't want to wade into it, but Kendrick Lamar gives you words. He wants you to think, you know. MC Hammer did not want you to think. He wanted you to shake your ass, you know. And so I think just staying in that realm of what do I want to give off. And if it's not like give, because, you know, I want reflective energy. So I want attention. Yes. And maybe that's a valid thing. I want attention. A one-man show is basically a beg for attention. Stand-up comics are begging for attention. But they're giving you laughter. They're giving you a take. They're giving you their time. They're giving you the fact that they're minstrels that fly around the country 3 days, you know, with 3 days off. There, a lot of these cats do fucking 50 fucking shows a year, 50 weekends a year. There's a give there. And that's why, these hecklers do get decimated, and rightfully so, because how dare you? I came here to give you something, So, as long as I kind of focus on that and remind myself that, even with my auditions, I'm here to give you something, a rendition, a version, my take, which is a take, but you know what I'm saying. And I wasn't always in that space in my career. It was always, it was more like the idea of like tap dancing for attention. And once I kind of reconciled that, I got plenty of attention in my life, or I have the attention of people who care about me the most. That's what's the attention I sought, I suppose. And now I still want to hang in there and do my craft, but now I want it to be a give. I guess show my heart, show my intellect, show my face to the internet, and be more of a give than a take. And I probably didn't set out to start with that notion. And I have a friend who's his favorite band broke up millions of years ago. No new material. Broke up prematurely after 4 albums. And when he heard I was a Springsteen fan, he's like, you guys are the luckiest fans, because the dude, all he does is give you new shit, new albums, and he goes on tour, I mean, obviously he needs to do that. That's his thing. He's become a millionaire because of it. But unfortunately, these bands have to reconcile with their own self-destruction and things like that. And I had to reconcile with what I was after in this business in the fucking first place. And if I had just figured it out a little sooner that it was a give, everything's a give, not a take, then I could have felt better about myself, that I wasn't just sort of hoping against hope to get discovered in the basket of fruit, There's that it's one of my favorite musicals, not the favorite. I don't know. I put it up with Les Mis, Rent, and those are the sort of operetta ones. But chorus line, there's the opening numbers. I hope I get it. I hope I get it. And I really need this job. I gotta get this job. But then there's lines in there where it's use me, choose me. And it's just like, oh, I really need this job. I understand that. And that's why that show is so vividly true. It's like, they aren't shying away from the need part, and that probably at that moment when you're trying out for a chorus line, it's a give, because you got to show your chops and your 5'11" and your legs for days, and you got 15 years of tap and 15 years of modern and jazz, and you've been on Broadway, like all those things that you need to, the hoop you got to jump through to get the job. But they're saying, I hope I get it. Use me, choose me. It's honest. It's so hard to hear because I've been there, but when you're saying use me, choose me, and it's not in a musical, it's a repelling feeling for the viewer. Whereas if it's a give, like, fuck you, you're going to pick somebody else. So fuck you. I'm going to do what I want. That's probably too far down the line. But if it's a give, and it still remains to be seen whether I book something with this casting director, but she brought me in a lot, and she brought me in after I reached out through the years on a cold call, email. It still remains to be seen, but I know next time I get a crack at it, I that's when you have a lucky feeling with somebody. Like, I know I can sort of, oh cool, I can just sort of relax on this one and send something in cool. I can send a give, because the take is what, send a couple takes, but the takes are for them. The give is from you. And anyway, I'm sure it's occurred to people before. They understand give and take, but integrating it, putting it in a feeling is where I think the growth can happen. I'd never been a Celtics fan, never will be. I am a New York sports fan, which is tough other than the Yankees. But in these reaction videos and in the sort of rewriting or referencing greatest of all time and things like that, they had I talk about Larry Bird, who wasn't my guy, but I think and it's also cut with music and it's a reel of the best moments, but I think what's different about the Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, that era for me, the will to win it's profound. It's not well adjusted, clearly, but when you see somebody's like life force so driven to win, and then I guess if you want to codify it with the some kind of, there's no altruism there, but his teammates, I mean the all out for your teammates, for your team, it winds up being moving to see someone who wants to win that bad. And you can do psychology on, well, he wanted to win that bad because of a gaping wound in his heart, but he wanted it so bad that to me that is sort of it's what makes things kind of profound. And even though it's the wrong team, and now I hated it when it was going down, and I hate when my team loses, but which happens all the time in basketball. But it's that will to win is a human thing, and to take it into your own hands and things like that. So if there's a way to put a feeling into a show, into the first line, the will to do something, it's starting to become clearer. So hopefully I can work on that, figuring out what the give is. And then you can that's where the editing can happen. Is this part of that give, or is this part of you're getting something? And so I'm going to hit the week with some intention to figure out what the give would be. And if it's just vulnerability and sharing your heart, yeah, that's a fair amount of giving, and that's what artists do. But a good old-fashioned sports analogy can't hurt every once in a while, and just watching people who don't want to lose, while you might not want to socialize with these crazy people, that drive, that will to win, it is something to behold, and in its own way beautiful. And so I want to encapsulate some of that stuff and figure out a way. And maybe that, quote unquote, my big win hasn't come yet. I haven't won my ring yet, my championship. Maybe that's sort of the narrative that will be underneath it all. Like, this guy's fucking still throwing punches. And Ryan Coogler said that his favorite scene in the Rocky movie, his favorite scene is when Rocky gets up. Rocky gets up after taking a beating. Got no business in the ring with Apollo Creed. And he gets up and he goes, come on, come on. And you cut to Carl Weathers, Apollo Creed, and he's like, ugh, this motherfucker won't go down. And Ryan Coogler's like, he took his fucking soul. Rocky took his soul. And that the storytelling is so good that a kid is rooting for the white guy. A black kid's rooting for the white guy. But that's the truth of the story. But when you can tell a story like that, where literally just the face Carl Weathers makes, like, he's still going to go in there and continue to beat the living Christ out of him to finish his job. But man, that come on. I mean, I could get there right now being choked up about it. And so that's an equivalent of what I might want to, somehow communicate in my shows, that I'm not going down. So with that, thanks for making 31 happen. And we'll talk to you next week or, whenever you check in. All right. Peace.